All right. How are you guys doing? Right on, right on. Well, I'm going to be working on some bikes and watching James Bond. Old vintage James Bonds in the background. So if you can hear some sound, that's what it is. It's an old James Bond movie, and I cannot believe how different stuff is now from how it was then. Anyhow, what I'm going to do to these bikes is pretty much a straightforward tune-up. I'm going to go through, make sure everything's working fine, everything's good, but then I'm going to go a little bit above. I'm going to swap out some cable housings on the two different bikes. The other one has a different color composition. You'll see what I mean when I get to that one, but for right now, I think the white cable housings on this bike will make it pop, look really cool, super easy transition, really affordable kind of thing to do. Easy way to make your bike personalized and really cool. Then I'm going to swap out the seat for a smaller kid-sized seat, more appropriate for the bike itself. This is like a full-size adult seat, and this one is just a kid-sized seat. I also have some touch-up paint that I'm going to be putting in places where there is scrapes and rust, and I want it to stop right there or give it some kind of extra durability. I will go through and take what needs to be taken off and put into the ultrasonic and into the ultrasonic, but what doesn't need to be taken off and put into the ultrasonic, it's just going to get hand wiped down. Pretty straightforward. This whole thing should go pretty fast. Anyhow, cool. Right on. Here we go. So what we got is a really intricate and unusual seat post on this kid's bike, and I wanted to show it to you. I'm going to take it off here first, but like there's a regular anchor point right here, but then on this side, as you can see right there, there's like a place to hold or to tighten with a open mouth wrench, and that's straight into the cap of the seat post. How trippy is that? Gotta be honest, not seen that one before. Ah, taken apart. Now you can see what I'm talking about. Do you see it? Right there? Very interesting. Very interesting. So, like, I am changing out the old one for this seat post, but this is a very unusual seat post. It's got an unusual clamping down method. So I'm going to put it in first. I'm going to put the saddle carousel or the saddle adjustment, put the bolt in through the back, then the little round thing with threads in it. The pretty common piece on a lot of seat posts. Just get it started. And boom, bada bing, you're down the road. This is a pretty interesting tightening method. Very interesting if you ask me. Overly complicated if you asked me. So quit asking me. Now that I got the seat adjusted and the way I want it on this small bike, I'll get it up in the stand by the seat post and get to work on the rest of it. Get out of here. I'm surprised they didn't put you too. Doesn't mess with my like that was the same cars. I saw those cars on the way up. Stage games everyone. You and me on the minute you left something for. There's only supposed to be one man who can pull together that much muscle in this town. Now we take it apart. You name the business, they say you have a black concession. Air compressor!
Then you're in Phoenix, light up. Illuminating.
Now listen, James. We just found out that Connecticut's got a private plane is leaving to terminate with
Oh, that was easy.
Then get me on the next available flight, will you, Phoenix?
I already did.
Wow, that was super easy. Boom, bada bing. And take it apart.
Where you'll find great offers on a sporty new Civic, spirited Accord, fun to drive HRV, and versatile CRV. So don't wait. Turn your holiday dreams into reality with a new Honda.
I'm just taking the brake cable bolt out to separate the brake cable.
Or visit your local Honda dealer today.
Loosening up the brake lever arms on the handlebars, and then figuring out how to loosen up the grip shift on the bike. We will see. Now I'm just pulling off the components, different controllers off the handlebar. And now I can replace the cables and the cable housings on everything. I have to loosen up a couple bolts on the back, but other than that, I'm not going to bore you with that stuff. I'll just get it done. Okay, so I've pulled off the controls and all the cable housings and stuff. Now I'm going to go through, pull the wheels off on the front and rear and clean them up, pull the rear cassette off, put it in the ultrasonic, clean up the rear derailleur, clean up the front chain ring and cranks, make sure that the bearings are all doing good in there, put both of the wheels onto my truing stand, make sure that they're true and that the spoke tension is appropriate on them. Then I will go back and reassemble these bikes into complete rocking little kids bikes, man. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. So, bit of an update on one of the kids' bikes. I have stripped it down of all its major components and gone through the bike pretty much with a fine-tooth comb, if you will, to clean it, take off any goo or anything that's on the frame, and get it ready for the new cables and housings that are going to be going on next. I'm going to clean the wheels up, get them, make sure that they're trued and that they're clean and that the hubs are functioning properly. And if I can, get slime or sealant into the tires. And those will get knocked out pretty quickly, but I expect this should go by pretty fast. And that seat looks way better on there, I think. Anyhow, so I'll hit you up when I've got more to show. Hi, how's it going? Right on, right on. Well, I am doing more work on a couple kids' bikes today, and I just kind of want to show you where I was at on the first one. And as just a matter of policy, on all of my tune-ups, I check all the wheels. I make sure that they're straight, or as straight as I can get them, and that the hubs are working right, the cones are working right, the brakes are working right, everything's like working basically the right way together. And I want them to be just right for my customer. So anyhow, here's onto the wheels. So like I said, I go through and I kind of wipe down and kind of polish up the best I can. Some wheels get more love than other wheels. This is just a quick tune, so I'm not rebuilding the hubs completely, but I am going through and making sure that everything is clean and dialed in and working just right. And now, I should be on to the next segment. Installing cable housings and putting the rest of the componentry on and getting the cockpit set up. Right on, let's go do that. All right, the very first thing that I'm going to do to change the cables out on this bike is I saved the old cable housings from before, so I'm just going to match them up and cut them the same length. That way I've got everything cut to the right length just right out of the gate. On a bike this small and this kind of consistent, I am okay doing that, but if I was on like a bigger, like an adult sized bike that had more work done on it, I would measure each cable out just individually and like make them too long and trim them back until they're just right. But I think this should go through pretty quickly. So like I said, the longest cable housing besides the shift cable housing is the brake for the rear. Pull that guy off. That is my brake. Okay. I'm going with white housing because I think it'll pop off on the frame a lot better than the black did. Plus, everything's got black cable housing on it. So how you guys' day going? Good? Probably at work or something? Well, no, you probably watch this when you get home in the evenings. So, not at work. Okay, so there is my rear shift cable and remnants. I'm gonna grab the front shift cable housing, which is this guy right here, right here. And I'm hoping we do plenty. Cool. So out of my remnants bin, like a leftover housing from other jobs, I found a piece that would do the whole thing all in one. So that's cool. That's really cool. Oh, one of the other things that I haven't been showing that I do on a regular basis, and I think is really important, is like when you cut these, even when you cut them with shop quality clippers, sometimes you get weird, like the way that the coiled metal around the brake housing kind of pokes out and isn't right. I double check them, and I've just figured out a way that I can just clip off the edge of them. Then I usually take a file to them to make sure that I've got any kind of sharp edges off of the ends of the metal so they don't interfere with the ferrule or the cable. And then I take a pick, it's got a point on it, and kind of clear the way for the cable so that when I go to line up everything, it's just buttery smooth, nice and easy, lemon squeezy. Nice. Now onto the shift cable. Got the shift cable housing right here. Got kind of a wonkety cable that was in it from before, and it's really bent up. I want to put a fresh cable into it, so I am deleting this. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't throw away cables. If they're still good, if they still got life in them, then I save them, curl them up, and like this shift cable, if I can use it for a front derailleur, yeah, I still do front derailleurs. If I can use it for a front derailleur, I will use it. In other words, like I try not to waste anything. Recycle, reuse, repurpose, man. That's very important to me. And I believe this is my shift. 'Tis my shift. So, I was once told, measure twice, cut once. So I try to incorporate that into my methodology. I got magnets on my little tool wall behind me, so that's what you hear every time I'm doing that. I'm just sticking tools back to the wall. It's cool. I dig it. I'll have to go through and do like a show on my shop, how my shop's set up. I just recently did a whole thing about cleaning it, clearing it out, and just a couple jobs in and it's already dirty again. Go figure. More effort, that's what I say. Okay, now on these grip shifts. Changing out the cable on here, and these quite often have a hidden little door for making, changing out the cable housing. And I can see this one, I just want to make sure I get at it appropriately. Should be just that. So I'm going to take a minute, figure this out. I'll get back to you in a second. All right, got her figured out. There is a little clip, and I had to compress that little tab down, and then the whole thing just pops open so that I can replace the shift housing or the shift cable. Cool. Okay. And then use my pick to pull the barrel end of the cable out of where it sits. Like there's like a seat that it sits in that holds it in place. And I can just pull the whole thing out. And like I said, I'll save this for potential use in the future. And I'm gonna dig into my, my treasure trove of parts and get a shift cable. I'll be right back. Okay, so went into my parts, found a shift cable, like a used shift cable, but a really nice one. It's actually like way better than the one that was in there before. And that's what I'm gonna put in. And I feed it back through the way it came out. Just pretty straightforward. Like it's just like usually through one little hole and then around a band on these shift or these grip shifts. And I pull the whole thing until the cable housing seats. And then I grab the piece of shift pod that I popped out and put it back in. I can't find it. I'll be back in a second. Ah, nice. Ah, I found it. It fell on the ground, so it was kind of invisible to me. So when I put these back in, I want to kind of follow the exact same procedure that I did when I was taking it off, but I want to go reverse because that's where it wants to start. Boom. Boom, bada bing. Cable housing shift. Or shift housing replaced. Nice. 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 Okay. Now, it's time to put on the rest of the componentry. Oh, you guys are nice ones. And for a totally different bike. These levers have got to be over here. Okay, left lever. When I'm working on these older bikes, quite often I'll come across parts that are really banged up. And through the years that I've been doing this, I've been able to find ways to kind of unbang them, as it were. but sometimes I'll run across stuff that just can't be saved and has to be replaced. Luckily, I've done quite a bit to try to minimize the amount of waste that I have on things. Like I said, just being working out of my own home kind of shop, I've got to make sure that I am doing the right thing with all of the resources at my disposal. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble. Financial trouble, that is. Okay. Brake. Caliper. On the wrong side. Brake. Okay. That was just a bar end plug that fell out right there. And other brake caliper. Oh, I remember. This caliper kind of, this lever, not caliper, this brake lever gave me some trouble coming off the bars. And so it's giving me trouble going back on, so I'm going to kind of spread it open wider if I can, using a little crowbar that I have. You could use a screwdriver too. That would work just fine. Nice. And then I'm going to set the grips on. I've got a couple different ways. Of setting grips, and probably one of the easier ones is like rubbing alcohol. You just squirt some in there, slide the grip on, and you're good to go. Except for I want to put these bar plugs in again over the top. Old school trick, we used to put nickels on the ends of our bars so that when the bar dug into the ground, it wouldn't tear off the rubber chunk right on the end, because that's one thing everyone gets. You get that rubber cut off and then you wreck really hard and that core samples you. I've almost had that happen for real once. I got cut by it, but it didn't take a core out of me. Anyhow, so you want to be really careful with that stuff. Not seeing the other bar end plug. It's a good thing I've got about 1 million of them. 1 second. All right, on a nickel, what you do is you drop the nickel down into the bottom of the grip. You got to make sure it's kind of flat at the bottom, so when you put it on, it goes on without any complications and just stays in place. Rubbing alcohol. Nice, nice. Nice. Huh. Kind of like the idea going over the brake. Yeah, I think that's cleaner looking. It's probably the way they had it. Nice, nice. Nice. All right, time for cables and housings. All right, let's put the wheels on and then get the cable housings on. One of my favorite tools that I've acquired over the years is this Part Tool 14 millimeter and 15 millimeter ratchet. This thing is super handy, especially for almost every old bike that is held on with nuts. Usually they're 15s. So that is awesome. Now, of course, I've gone through this entire fork, everything up front, and kind of detailed it, cleaned it out. I didn't rebuild it. It's an older elastomer fork, so I don't think that there's really anything I could do that would like benefit anything in there. So now it's just a matter of bolting her back on. And making it safe. Sweet. Good and straight. And again, where that ratchet just comes in perfect. When you gotta put a couple turns in a hurry on a bolt so it stays in place. Sweet. Sweet. Let's put on some cable housings. Now, put the tool back when you're done using it, if you can. I think I'll go with the shift housing first. Going with white Jaguar housing and black aluminum Jaguar ferrules. This thing's gonna shift like butter. It's got one of my older cables that I was storing to reuse, and it's like a race cable, so it's extra smooth and extra tough and extra fast. All right. I believe it went around the outside. Yeah. This bike has a bit of an interesting cable routing situation. Instead of there being like clip-on locations or locations for zip ties, it's like a complete metal guide. It goes all the way back. That's all right. We are ready for that. Okay, on the barrel adjuster, instead of it just leaving it zeroed out like so that you've got the maximum amount of outward adjustment, I actually roll it out a half turn so you've got some inward adjustment if you need it on the initial setup. And this thing does have quite a cool cable routing. It's got like a roll-a-majig on it. Like, if you're old school, you know what a roll-a-majig is. Nice. I think that was a 9. 12, 11. Makes me think. All right. Now, I guess we got to hook it down first before I can twist it. And to the tool pad it goes. A little stretchy. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just really like working on these older bikes. They just are just such easy things to work on. A little bit more tight on that. And I'm gonna pull. Oh. Some of these older assemblies, you gotta kind of almost trick the cable set, like make it a little bit tighter than it would be, just to get it where it needs to be. That's what I want to see. Sweet. Okay. One more tighten. We should be there. Should get all the space pulled out of it. All right. Nice. There we go. Up. All right then. Okay, just gonna do a little bit of fine tuning on it, and then I'll throw the brake housings on and we'll get this bike wrapped up. All right, now I'm gonna put on the brake cable housings and dial the rest of it in. This should actually go pretty quickly and pretty smoothly. Actually one of the easier parts of doing these jobs. And my gosh, do I have enough cable for the front? Oh my heck. That cable's too new to use on the front completely. I'm gonna switch. Okay. And before I put the little elbow on to go into the linear brake arm, drop a tri-flow down there. in little squishy rubber thing. Another trick that I use when I'm setting these brakes is I'll take the spring tension off of the brake arms, the linear brake arm calipers. There's a way that you can just pop that spring arm off so that you can set everything and not have it under tension, but get it tight so that you can tune it appropriately fairly quickly. Faithful tri-wrench. Just a little. So instead of putting them, like tightening down the cable so it's just super tight, like instantly super tight, I put it on a little bit loose so that there's a little bit of play in there. Nice. Just a little bit tighter, and that'll be perfect. A little too much. Go backwards a little bit. One of the other tricks I'll use is I'll put a marker, and I'll mark on the cable housing so I can get it exactly where I want quicker. Okay, that pull on that side needs to be a little bit stronger. On these linear brake arms, there's a spot where you can tighten up the spring tension on the arm on a screw on the side. Just a little looser. What is that spring tension? Sweet. Nice. Now I'll do the same thing for the rear brake and a couple finished wipe downs, and this tune-up will be done. Sweet. I'm going to do a cut in between that. Okay. Now I'm going to do the rear brake cable housing and adjust the brake, and then just finish up the tune, and this bike will be done. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I just took the existing cable housings off and used them to cut my measurements on all of my housings just right out of the gate. If it doesn't look right when I put it all together, I'll go back through it and fix it. But it's a good way to get there quickly without having to do a bunch of other stuff. But if you go trying to shove a cable into a cable housing and it's not got a clean end, you're asking for trouble. So I always cut so I have a clean end when I go to put it on to the housing. That way, Easy peasy. Okay. This is where I was saying that this bike has got an unusual cable routing system on it. I mean, it's cool and all, it's just a little bit asymmetrical in a way, at least from the way my brain works. And it's all those single hoops of steel. Jumping through hoops of steel. Oh, and because I'm using white cable housing on this stuff, I will go back through and kind of wipe the cable housings off and stuff. You know, they'll get a little bit of fingerprints on them. Little tri-flow. There we go. And rubbery bit. And I disconnect the springs just to make this a little bit simpler so I'm not fighting tension. It's not that big of a deal to do it with the tension on there too. In fact, some people may prefer doing that, but I don't. I like doing this. So that's totally tight. Back off. Out. And 4. Give her a little tighten. Reapply the springage. Sweet. Tighten it up just a tad. By a tad, I mean like a tad, like a 1/16 of an inch of the cable pull, maybe a little bit more than a 1/16, 1/8, not a whole lot. Double check something real quick. Oh, that's the other thing. You always want to make sure that you can disable the brake. Okay, that has nothing to do with the brakes. There's just a weird little wonky noise. I'm guessing it's the old freewheel clunking into place. Not a big deal. There we go. Nice. So when I do linear brake arm calipers, I usually leave about 3 inches, maybe a little bit more than 3 inches of cable afterwards. And the reason I do that is I will take, and I'll take an end crimp and crimp it on there, and then tuck it behind the spring arm that's on the linear brake arm. And it just kind of is a cool place to hide it back there. It's a cool little trick that works out really good. Plus, you have a little bit of extra cable, so if you ever get in a situation where you need to move stuff around a little bit, there's a little bit of leeway there too. Nice, very nice. Okay, time for crimps. I've got like a whole thingy thing, different colored crimps. Grab 3 red. kind of hard though because I've got red ones and I've got orange ones that are just a shade off. I know, nitpicky, but that's how it goes. There we go. And get my favorite ferrule crimpers. This tool, these, I love these. These are so good for so many things. I'm looking at someday getting one of the bougie Park Tool crimping tools that's specifically for that. But not until I make more money. By the way, I am doing bike repairs and tune-ups at home. I'm doing them for really affordable prices, and in some cases I'll do them for free. Like if I just need to help a kid back on a bike, I'm down with that. Everyone that knows me knows how I am with this stuff. In fact, I end up asking far less than what I should ask, but people end up compensating me afterwards. So it's a weird situation. I don't know. What it comes down to is I think it's important to give back to the community, and when you do that, there are things that you will notice happen in your life that are cool. I don't know if that makes any sense, but last crimpy crimp. Very nice. And then the little trick I was talking about, just tuck it up behind the brake arm and it ends up settling right behind the brake arm. Do the same up front. Tuck it right up and invisible. Sweet. I believe we're there. Nice, nice. And of course, I'm going to tighten up the controls on the cockpit, but I will usually just put them in a generic neutral like location. I like to have the person that's riding it be here so I can adjust them so that they're comfortable. Like a bunch of little kids I've seen before will get on a bike and they're not at all where they need to be for their hands. And sometimes you need to do some things to these levers to put them in the right place to make them more comfortable to ride. So I put them in a neutral place. I like to make them custom for people, but sometimes you can't always do that. All right. Now I will use one lever to locate visually where the other lever will be to match them. I know people that can like do it without that stuff, but I've found that I do a better job if I visually match them like that. Some people can just be like, whoop, whoop, oh, that's perfect, right where they are. Cool, same amount of pull on both sides, shifting good. I'll tell you what, I declare this bike done. Woo! On to the next one. Looking like new. Sweet. Voila.